If complaining was a paid profession, Obinna would be the richest man in Lagos. But Obinna didn't complain about money, or the heat, or the government. No, Obinna had only one enemy in this life: noise. Obinna was a wealthy man, a spare parts importer who lived in a duplex painted the color of money. But despite his wealth, he was miserable. Why? Because he lived in a world that refused to shut up. To Obinna, the world was just too loud. The conductor shouting "Oshodi, Oshodi" was a headache. The generator humming "GRR, GRRR" all night was a migraine. But the worst noise of all came from women. Obinna believed that God created women on a day when he was feeling particularly talkative, and he gave them double the portion of words meant for mankind. His last girlfriend, Jessica, was a good woman, but she talked like a radio station that had lost its off button. She would talk while brushing her teeth, while watching movies. She would even talk in her sleep. Obinna broke up with her on Valentine's Day because she asked him, "Baby, what are you thinking?" for the 5th time in 1 hour. Obinna told his friend Emeka at the bar, "Emeka, I am tired. I don't want a wife who will ask me, 'How was your day?' I don't want a wife who will gossip about the neighbors. I want a wife who is like a library book, beautiful, full of knowledge, but completely silent unless you open her up." Emeka laughed and chewed his goat meat. "Obinna, you're looking for a ghost, not a wife. A woman's mouth is her weapon and her comfort. If she is not talking, she is plotting. Be careful what you pray for." But Obinna was a stubborn man. He was the kind of man who would argue with Google Maps. He decided that he would go back to his village, to the deepest, darkest part of the interior, to find a wife who had not been corrupted by the noise of the city. He wanted a mumu wife, a woman so submissive and quiet that he would have to check her pulse to know she was alive. He didn't know that the silence he was looking for was the same silence found in a grave. Obinna traveled to his village, Umuogu. It was a place so remote that even the internet signal refused to go there. He met many girls. The village matchmaker, Mama Yugo, brought them out like goods in a supermarket. There was Kioma, who was beautiful but laughed too loud. "Rejected," Obinna said. There was Ngozi, who was hardworking but hummed while she swept. "Too noisy," Obinna complained. There was Adago, who was perfect, but she greeted him 3 times in 1 minute. "She talks too much," Obinna grumbled. Mama Yugo was frustrated. "Obinna, you are looking for a wife, not a piece of furniture. A woman must speak, not my woman," Obinna said arrogantly. "I want peace." That evening, Obinna went for a walk near the forbidden stream, the stream where the villagers said the spirits came to wash their clothes. And there, he saw her. She was washing clothes on a rock. She was tall, with skin the color of polished mahogany. She moved with a grace that was almost unnatural, like water flowing over stones. But what caught Obinna's attention was the silence. She washed the clothes without splashing water. She scrubbed without making a sound. Even the birds in the trees above her seemed to stop singing when she was near. Obinna approached her. "Good evening, sister." The girl turned. She was breathtaking. Her eyes were large and dark, holding a mystery that pulled Obinna in. She looked at him, bowed her head slightly, and continued washing. She did not say, "Good evening." She did not giggle. She did not ask his name. Obinna was in love. He found out her name was Zina. She was an orphan who lived with her blind grandmother at the edge of the forest. The villagers avoided her. They said she was heavy. They said her mother died screaming, and since that day, Zina had never spoken a word. Obinna went to the blind grandmother with gifts: yams, oil, cash, and Hollandaise wrapper. "I want to marry Zina," Obinna announced. The blind woman did not smile. She turned her milky eyes toward him, and her face twisted in fear. "My son," she rasped, her voice sounding like dry leaves. "Zina is not for you. Zina is for the silence. She does not speak because she has nothing to say to the living. Leave her alone." But Obinna laughed. "Mama, I have money. I will take care of her. I love her quiet nature. It is exactly what I need." The old woman sighed, a sound that rattled in her chest. "If you take the silence, you must keep the silence." Never force the jar to open, or you will drown in what comes out. Obinna didn't listen to riddles. He paid the bride price. He did a quick traditional wedding where Zina simply nodded instead of saying I do. And just like that, the man who hated noise married the quietest woman in the world. When Obinna brought Zina back to the city, his life became a paradise. Zina was the perfect wife. She woke up before him silently. She cleaned the house until it sparkled silently. When Obinna came home, his food was on the table, hot and delicious. She would take his briefcase, kneel to welcome him, and not say a word. Obinna was in heaven. He bragged to Emeka. No, Obinna, where were you? No, Obinna. I need money for hair. Just peace. The neighbors, however, were confused. In their compound, everyone knew everyone's business. If a husband and wife fought, the neighbors would bring chairs to watch. But from Obinna's flat, nothing. No sound. Madame Kofo, the busybody neighbor who lived downstairs, tried to engage Zina. Good morning, my dear. How is your husband? Madame Kofo shouted from the balcony. Zina just bowed and walked away. Ah, Madame Kofo whispered to the others. That girl is arrogant, or maybe she is deaf and dumb. Does Obinna beat her? Why is she quiet like a witch plotting evil? But Obinna defended her. She is well trained, he told them proudly. She is not like you market women who swallow loudspeakers for breakfast. For 6 months, it was perfect. But human beings are funny creatures. We always want what we don't have. And when we finally get what we want, we start to find faults. The silence, which was once sweet like honey, began to turn sour. It started with small things. Obinna would be watching the news, and he would make a comment. Look at this president, he is a fool. He would wait for a reaction. A laugh. A nod. A nod. But Zina would just sit there, staring at the wall, her face completely blank. Obinna started to feel lonely. He missed the banter. He missed the validation. Then the silence began to feel unnatural. One night, Obinna woke up to use the bathroom. The house was pitch black. He walked to the living room and saw Zina standing by the window, looking out at the moon. She was perfectly still. She wasn't breathing. Obinna froze. He listened. Usually, you can hear a person breathing. You can hear the rustle of their clothes. But from Zina, nothing. It was as if she wasn't there. It was as if he was looking at a 3D projection of a woman. Zina? He whispered. She turned her head slowly. Too slowly. Her eyes reflected the moonlight like a cat. She didn't blink. She just looked at him, then turned back to the moon. Obinna went back to bed shivering. A week later, Obinna came home early. He unlocked the door quietly, wanting to surprise her. He walked into the kitchen. Zina was cooking. She was chopping vegetables. The knife was moving up and down with incredible speed. Chop, 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 but there was no sound. The knife hit the wooden board, but it made no thud. The onions fell into the bowl, but made no plop. The pot was boiling on the fire, but there was no bubbling sound. Obinna rubbed his ears. Was he going deaf? He clapped his hands. Pa! The sound was loud and sharp. He could hear himself. So why couldn't he hear her? Zina, he said, his voice trembling. She stopped chopping. She turned. She smiled. But the smile didn't reach her eyes. It was a mask. Why ... Why is the kitchen so quiet? Obinna asked. Zina just tilted her head and offered him a glass of water. Obinna's irritation grew into fear, and fear grew into anger. The silence was no longer peaceful. It was heavy. It felt like the air in the house was thicker than outside. It pressed against his eardrums. He started playing music loudly just to fill the void. He would turn the TV to the maximum volume. Zina would just sit there, unbothered, as if the noise flowed through her like wind through a net. One evening, after a bad day at work where he lost a container at the port, Obinna came home angry. He wanted to vent. He wanted to fight. He wanted a reaction. Food is cold! He shouted, throwing the plate onto the floor. The plate shattered. Crash! Zina didn't flinch. She simply bent down and started picking up the pieces. Say something. Obinna screamed.
Are you a statue? Are you a zombie? I am talking to you.
I am your husband. Zena looked up at him.
Her face was calm, but her eyes were swirling.
They looked like deep, dark water. Talk to me. Obinna grabbed her shoulders and shook her. Why won't you speak? Do you hate me? Are you cursing me in your mind? Open your mouth. Zena pulled away gently. She reached out and touched his cheek. Her hand was cold. Ice cold. She shook her head slowly, a warning. But Obinna was past warnings. He was a man possessed by the need to break the very thing he had bought. I command you. Obinna roared, his ego taking over. I paid your bride price. I own your voice. Speak to me, damn it. He raised his hand to slap her, the first time he had ever thought of violence. Zena caught his hand in midair. Her grip was iron. It was stronger than any man's grip. Obinna gasped. He tried to pull away, but he couldn't. Zena stood up. She was taller now. Or maybe the room was shrinking. The shadows in the corners of the room stretched out to touch her. She looked deep into his soul. And for the first time, Obinna saw what was hiding behind the silence. It wasn't shyness. It wasn't humility. It was restraint. She pointed to her mouth, then to his. She raised an eyebrow, asking a silent question. Are you sure? Yes. Obinna wept, terrified but stubborn. Speak. Say something. Zena nodded. She released his hand. She stepped back to the center of the living room. The lights in the house flickered and died. The generator outside, which had been humming, suddenly cut off. The dogs in the neighborhood stopped barking. The crickets stopped chirping. Total, absolute silence. The kind of silence that rings in your ears. Zena opened her mouth. Obinna expected a scream. He expected a curse. He expected a sob. But what came out was not a human sound. At first, it was a low vibration, like an earthquake starting deep underground. The plates on the shelf began to rattle. The windows began to shake. Then the sound came. It was every sound Obinna had ever hated, amplified by 1,000. It was the screech of metal, the wailing of mourners, the thunder of a storm, the roaring of the ocean. It was a cacophony of ancient noise. But it wasn't just noise. It was a physical force. The sound wave hit Obinna like a physical blow, throwing him back against the wall. His ears popped. Blood trickled from his nose. Stop! He tried to scream, but he couldn't hear his own voice. Zena's jaw unhinged. It opened wider than a human jaw should. Her mouth became a black hole, a vortex swirling with wind and darkness. And from that darkness, voices flew out. Not her voice, his voice. Obinna watched in horror as his own words, every complaint he had ever made, every insult, every arrogant statement, flew out of her mouth and attacked him. They swarmed him like bees. She talks too much. I want a silent wife. Shut up. The words took physical form, cutting his skin, tearing his clothes. And then, the suction started. The vortex in Zena's mouth reversed. Instead of pushing sound out, it began to pull sound in. It sucked the air out of the room. It sucked the rattling of the windows. And then it pulled at Obinna. He opened his mouth to scream. Please. But no sound came out. He felt a sharp, tearing sensation in his throat. He clutched his neck. He could feel his voice, his ability to speak, to grunt, to cry being ripped out of his vocal cords. It floated out of his mouth like a stream of silver smoke and drifted into Zena's waiting, gaping maw. She swallowed it. Gulp. Then she closed her mouth. Her jaw snapped back into place. The lights came back on. The generator started humming outside. The crickets started chirping. Zena smoothed her wrapper. She looked at Obinna, who was huddled in the corner, bleeding, clutching his throat, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. You wanted silence, my husband, Zena said. Her voice was beautiful. It was melodic. It was rich and smooth like hot chocolate, but it was also familiar. It had the cadence of Obinna's own confidence. It had the power he used to have. She walked over to him, knelt down and patted his head like a dog. "You were right," she said, using his stolen voice. "The world is too loud. But now, you don't have to worry about adding to the noise. You are finally perfect." The next morning, the neighbors were surprised to see Obina and Zena walking out. But something had changed. Zena was greeting everyone. "Good morning, Madam Kofo. How is the market?"
"Ah, your dress is beautiful."
Her voice was loud, charming, and commanding. She laughed a big, booming laugh that filled the compound. Walking behind her was Obina. He was carrying her bag. He was looking at the ground. He looked thin and gray. "Ah, Obina!" Madam Kofo shouted. "You are quiet today. Has the cat got your tongue?" Obina looked up. His eyes were filled with a terror that no one could understand. He opened his mouth to speak, to beg, to explain. But all that came out was a soft, dry hiss of air. Zena laughed again, patting him on the back. "Oh, Madam Kofo, leave my husband alone. He has decided to become a listener. He realized that he talks too much." "Isn't that right, darling?" Obina nodded slowly. He had no choice. Zena led him to the car, sat in the driver's seat, and started the engine. She turned the radio up to the highest volume, singing along to the music. Obina sat in the passenger seat, his hands folded in his lap, trapped in a prison of silence that he had built with his own arrogance. And so, my people, the story ends. Be careful when you ask for a partner who has no voice. Be careful when you demand silence from the people around you. Because the universe has a funny way of granting wishes. Some people are quiet because they are shy. But some are quiet because they are holding back a storm. And if you force the storm to break, don't be surprised if you are the one who gets washed away. Obina wanted a quiet life. And now, he has the quietest life of all. He screams every night in his dreams. But when he wakes up, nobody hears him.